Hello everyone, this is Tim, and this is going to be a depression vlog. I'm not sure what number it's up to now, I'll have to check later. But talk to Eric, I'll put a link down to his blog down below. You can check him out if you want. He's like an old school Renaissance kind of blogger. But yeah, he kind of motivated me to do this again. I talked to him a little bit on Facebook today. So this one goes out to you, Eric. So where am I at right now? Currently not on any antidepressants. I talked about that a little while back where I was going to go the therapy route for a while. So I've been doing that, and I was going every 2 weeks, and then I thought I was alright, so I started going like every 3 weeks, and that was like too much of a time span, I guess. And there's a lot of things that my like parents and stuff were throwing at me, so yeah, I went back to every 2 weeks for a while, and I've been doing that for... I'm not exactly sure. My brain doesn't really keep track of time well. I don't, like my memories are awful. And as far as like how many months I've been doing therapy, I'm not sure. I could probably go back and listen to my vlogs myself. Maybe I can figure it out that way. I'm also not really good with the like timeline of things. Like my therapist was always really frustrated with me. She's like, "Wait, I thought you said that was 10 years ago, and I thought you said it was this." And I'm like, honestly, I told her, it's like, you probably know my timeline better than I do, just because I can't. It just doesn't work right. I don't know why. But whatever. So right now, I think I'm actually doing pretty well. I tend to do pretty well in the spring, though. Like, with all the green coming out. I'm a big fan of trees and getting out in the wild and nature. Probably getting more vitamin D, being outside more. Not locked away in my house, clattering away on my computer. So I talked to my therapist, though, and she had said that I've made a lot of progress. I seem to have gained some skills. I'm able to sort of like filter out a lot of the things that would be like negative, and yeah, like the negative self-talk that like is like constantly in the back of my head, criticizing myself and call myself names and all kind of stuff. I've been trying to sort of like duct tape that that like evil ugly mouth shut. Like, hey, that's enough of that shit, Let's try to be more positive. And I also I'm more aware of things that will bring me down. I'm a big fan of music. Anyone who's on my Facebook will know that. But I've noticed too that sometimes music is a trigger for me. If I'm listening to bands or albums that, especially like the 90s, like metal alternative kind of stuff, sometimes that's a trigger for me. Like it'll set me down like a train of thought that's not good. And I don't know if it's just the notes or just it's almost like bad nostalgia, I guess. I'm not really sure. So I've kind of stayed away from certain bands. Other ones I'm going to listen to no matter what. I'm still a huge Megadeth, early Metallica. The last Metallica album was really good too. I'm still going to listen to metal. It's not like I'm going to stop doing that. Mainly because I think it gets my anger out. So I can talk about that a little bit, I guess. I've had people say, they see me driving down the road that, wow, man, you look really angry. It's like, well, I get that out of me because, all the double bass pedal and the screaming lyrics, so the growling, guttural, that kind of stuff. That's that's in my wheelhouse. But I like to listen to other stuff too. I'm getting off track again. But so I told my therapist, like, you know what? I think I'm doing pretty well. So how about I just take a break for a while? I'm gonna stop going to therapy and see how that goes. I did like going and knowing when the next time I was going to be there, because I feel like there's always new stuff cropping up, and I think I've kind of covered all the old stuff with her and kind of come to grips with that, kind of did my old dealing with it stuff, and yeah. So I'm going to stop going and see how that treats me. I'm not making like a statement like I'm never going to therapy again, because that's not like realistic at all. I'm sure that could probably change in the future. So yeah, it's like I got the neighbor outside. So we'll see how that goes. I'm gonna keep it open that I could go back in the future if things get too much for me. But as of right now, things are going pretty well. I know that, like, I guess I can talk about some of the stuff that has gotten me down in the past. Maybe that'll, I don't know, help someone out there. So it seems like my parents are a huge trigger for me. Like, even just talking to them on the phone, trying to help them out, any interaction with them, just my mood just drops out of the floor. And I have gotten better at that, but it's something that I have to watch out for. I kind of liken my exposure to my parents like getting like radiation. Like, you know, I'm hanging out in Chernobyl when I'm at my father's house, or you know, when my mother invariably needs me for something else. You know, that's really the only time she talks to me or interacts with me. You know, so it's very one way. And I guess that's actually a lot of my relationships feel that way. I seem to be a very sensitive person. Like, if I'm hanging out with somebody, whatever emotions they are having just come right into me, and I absorb them like a sponge. I figured out recently that I'm actually extroverted, but people overwhelm me, and I just absorb all that into me, and it can be tough. You know, even though I crave that stuff, I have to back away from them and just kind of have some alone time just to kind of deal with everything that I'm feeling and felt. So I've learned to just kind of limit my exposure to my parents, try to focus on my kids. My kids do stress me out. I worry about them a lot, and I'm a caregiver. You know, I work in a group home, so you know, I take care of people at work for 3 days, get like 36 hours in, like, you know, condensed work week, and then I'm watching my kids the rest of the week, and that can be overwhelming. I don't have a lot of alone time. Right now is actually kind of like the tail end of my alone time. I get like once a week for a couple hours where the neighbor watches my kid, and my son's in preschool, and I look forward to this time every week. It's kind of like a little chance to recharge. You know, it gives me a chance to do things like this, like film a video, where it would be more difficult with the background noise and stuff that's going on in the house. But things that have bothered me in the past, like, you know, I almost witnessed my father kill himself when I was, I believe, 8 or 9 years old, and that kind of just started me off down like a darker, like depressed, anxious sort of path. You know, there was things that happened between me and like a babysitter that were really weird and, you know, abusive, and you know, I've only really started talking about that to, you know, only recently. So yeah, that stuff bothers me a lot. Yeah, my parents' divorce. My father was in a motorcycle accident back in 1988 when I was 9, and all the consequences from that. He was in a body cast for a long time. My mother was working 2 jobs, and it actually took my therapist to point it out to me. She's like, wait a minute. So your dad was in a body cast for like 1.5 years, 2 years, and your mom was working 2 jobs. Who was raising the kids? You know, who was raising you, your brother, and your sister? And I didn't even realize it. It's like, well, I guess that was me, you know, for a long time. So,
Anybody home?
yeah, all right. Gotta stop it here. Some other stuff that bothers me, I guess, about the past is that my brother got involved in a lot of like occult practices and things, and did a lot of weird stuff in the woods. And I think it kind of messed him up. He also did a lot of drugs and stuff too. So I think the combination of those two really had him like sort of depart from reality. And he ended up shooting my father in the back of the head while my dad was sleeping. And I don't know how, but my dad survived that. And it was kind of touch and go for a long time. You know, I think we spent every day in the hospital for at least maybe like 3 months. Just we visited him whenever we could. Me, my wife, and my sister, and took care of him. And then whenever he got done with the hospital, then we had to, you know, me and my sister took turns taking care of him at the house until eventually he ended up living on his own. And, you know, I hated my brother for a long time. I didn't talk to him for I think it was about 3 years. And eventually it just got to the point where, you know, I felt like I had to move on, kind of let go of that. And I actually, you know, I talk to him now. We text sometimes, talk sometimes. But, you know, it's not what it was before. Especially because we were close growing up. We used to have bunk beds, and, you know, we spent like almost every waking minute with each other. So yeah, in the end I ended up missing my little brother, and that was more to me. That meant more to me to have him in my life than holding on to the past. And thankfully he's kind of changed his ways, grown up, matured a little bit, got some help, got on some medications. So he's doing better off these days. My mother is diagnosed with schizophrenia and bipolar, and she probably has a few other things going on. She's really hard to understand and talk to. She replaces words with other words, and she just doesn't make a lot of sense. On top of that, she makes the worst decisions possible. And, like, for instance, you give her 4 choices, she'll pick a 5th one that just, out of, like, left field. Like, why did you pick that, mother? She moves around a lot, and for a long time, I just enabled her. I helped her move, gave her money, etc. But I had to put up some healthy boundaries and, basically tell her that, I have my own family now. I need to take care of them. And it still really bothers me that she only calls when she needs help. It's pretty sad when strangers in a grocery store will, like, notice my kids more than my own mother. They care about my kids more than my own mother. The only time she ever talks about them is if I bring them up in conversation, to try to see if she has, like, any sort of grandmotherish qualities, and she really has, like, almost none. It's really sad, especially when I compare her to, her mother, my grandmother, and you look up grandmother in the dictionary, and there's my grandmother. She was awesome, making apple pies, and paid attention to the kids, played with the kids, gave us all kinds of fun stuff to do. And it's just, she'd call and send cards and happy birthday this and, like Easter cards. Everything you think a grandmother should do, my grandmother did. And she lived on a farm. And it was awesome. I have really good memories of being on that farm. But when, like, I compare that to my own mother, it's just, the contrast is staggering. It's white and black. It's awful. So yeah. So my mother and my father. Okay, we'll talk about my dad a little bit. So he tends to be verbally abusive, and he has a lot of chronic pain issues. So he's just really hard to be around. And anyone who's had a head injury, especially a gunshot, and he managed to survive that, he's really hard to be around. He takes things out on people. If he thinks there's any slight at all, he just goes onto attack mode, and my mood just plummets whenever he's like that, which is sadly most of the time. But I've learned to limit my exposure to them, to call them on their their bullshit whenever they start slinging stuff at me, making me feel awful for no reason, and it seems to be helping out. I'm just gonna let this video play for a little while. You can kind of stare at the fire if you want. I burned some extra chunks of wood that were in my shed in the backyard. I'm trying not to be a wood hoarder, like my father. I guess I could mention that too. My dad likes to hoard just about everything. His house is just filled to the brim with all kinds of stuff. It's not as bad as that hoarding show that you see on, what is that, A&E, but it's pretty bad. So whenever I have those tendencies, I am trying to go against them. So I've been keeping old scraps of wood and things, and I decided to burn them. So that's what you're watching. All right, everybody. I hope you're all doing well out there. I hope if you're having problems that you get help. And it might be like me in your life, where you get therapy, you get help for a while, and you're good. And then you take a step back, and then stuff happens again, and you need it again. So don't feel like you can't ever go back and get more help, because there's always options there. And if you're thinking about suicide, please reach out to loved ones and get the help that you need. Sometimes just being able to completely vent to somebody, even a complete stranger on the internet, can be the difference between life and death. So if you feel like you're alone, just reach out to somebody, even if that's me. A fellow flawed person who's struggling every day. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening in, and I'll talk to you later.